share us round. Now tap that screen, tap it, tap that screen, yeah, tap it, it's your warm.
Welcome Gaga and Grumps to Wordle with Gaga.
Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your place and prepare to play.
Gang gremlins on the scene.
Welcome Alison P to Wordle with Gaga.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says hi there,
Tap
Alison.
that screen, yeah, tap it. Gang gremlins come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart,
Let's
Alison.
see those team stickers flow.
Alison P says, hey lovely.
Gang gremlins on the scene.
Welcome Grumps to Wordle with Gaga.
Now tap that screen.
Grumps says hello everyone.
Gaga Grumps says how are you today?
Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Gang gremlins on the scene. Welcome gremlins to the gang grotto. Welcome gremlins to the gang
Alison
grotto.
P says, I'm tired but okay. You?
Settle down, grab your heartbeat, share us round. Now
Gaga
tap
Grumps
that
says
screen,
welcome
tap it,
gremlins
tap
to the
it,
game
tap that
grotto.
screen, yeah, tap
Welcome
it,
Isaac to Wordle with
Grab your daily
Gaga.
heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Gang gremlins on the scene. Gang gremlins on the scene. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says I'm surviving as always.
Tap it. Gang gremlins come and let's go. Now
Alison P says, at Gaga and Grumps.
tap that screen, yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says hey Isaac, how goes it?
Now tap that screen.
Isaac says I'm good.
Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says excellent, that's what I like to hear.
Welcome Oscar to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says who's ready to Wordle with Gaga?
Isaac says didn't do so well on today's daily Wordle law.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for the rose, Isaac.
Isaac says NP.
Gaga Grumps says I got it in 5, so not a great performance either. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. E. Gaga Grumps says hey there Oscar, didn't see you come in. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Welcome MMACSM to Wordle with Gaga.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Hearts be flying like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Lines to fire. Lines to fire.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with E, please, Isaac.
Isaac says enjoy.
Gaga Grumps says high 3mm. Gaga Grumps says enjoy, I certainly will.
Welcome Saram to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says a yellow O in need of a home. Gaga Grumps says hi Saram, thanks for the rose.
Welcome Charlie to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says hi Shay.
Welcome Shay to Wordle with Gaga. Welcome Adam Fool to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says frost fits.
Isaac says shoot. Isaac says NVM.
Alison P says shock.
Gaga Grumps says O lives at number 2 Wordle Street. S needs a home. Gaga Grumps says thanks for the rose 3mm. Gaga Grumps says shock works.
Welcome Charlie to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says no change. Gaga Grumps says no plurals in Wordle. Gaga grumps says hi Layla, it can't be plums.
Oscar says at Layla Margaret Lindsay, calm down with your spamming.
Gaga grumps says no N for plain. Gaga grumps says I can't be plums because it's plural and there are no plurals in Wordle.
Oscar says at Layla Margaret Lindsay, no plurals, bro.
Gaga grumps says don't spam Layla, first warning.
Isaac says don't spam your word in chat, please.
Welcome Ryan Winter to Wordle with Gaga.
Oscar says Layla must get angry very easily.
Allison P says close.
Isaac says so.
Welcome Afia to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says asoma isn't a word.
Allison P says in VM it's a plural.
Gaga grumps says glows is plural.
Grumps says Layla is taking some time out to reflect on her actions.
Isaac says spoon.
Isaac says and VM no N.
Oscar says was gonna say plows but no plurals. Welcome J Light to Wordle with Gaga. Welcome Ann to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says oh pious is good, great shout Charlie.
Allison P says WD.
Good game.
It's playtime!
Welcome Harpy the Third to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says GG's for Charlie.
Grumps is on the buttons!
Gaga grumps says GG gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Let those stickers fly!
Grumps says at half like a third hey.
Good game.
Are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga,
Thanks
are
for
you
the
ready?
follow.
Team Grumps, are you steady? Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go! Team Gaga, 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 Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps,
Gaga grumps says thanks for following Roblox.
Welcome Roblox to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says thanks for doing your daily half Oscar.
game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's
Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Charlie. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. I. Gaga Grumps says seems like the wheel likes vowels today. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
KJ to Wordle 6 says hello.
Grumps says it's KJ 2026 hail.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says hi KJ, how goes it today? Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says wow, you smashed the first Ike goal already, wow. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. I please Ryan. Gaga Grumps says and hi Ryan, I didn't see you come in. Gaga Grumps says and JHE snuck in too.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says igloo you got.
JXDU and SMG12 says daily heart me.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeout in the chat.
Isaac says spark.
Welcome JXD on's MG to Wordle with Gaga.
Says space.
Isaac says spark.
Grumps says at GRWMOFFICIEL no L or O.
Gaga Grumps says your daily heart me is that orange heart up top by my name after you followed me.
Grumps says at Ryan Winter 64 no I.
Well, Creative One says space.
Gaga Grumps says spark fits.
Oh, Creative One says cry.
Gaga Grumps says yellow R and K in need of homes. Gaga Grumps says hi creative. Gaga Grumps says murky works. LL Creative One says at Gaga and Grumps hi. Gaga Grumps says we end in RKY.
Oh, Creative One says jerky.
Gaga Grumps says jerky still works.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says damn it could have been Wipeout to fireworks. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle
Good
with
game.
Gaga. Will the fireworks fly? A random star chosen by fate. Play a part, it's a live date. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.
Get it in 3.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
A pretty sky.
Creative One says I don't see how PPL do it with 10 letters. This is challenging with just 5.
Wordle with Gaga. Da-da-da. Wordle with Gaga. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Gaga Grumps says I do the 32 at a time Wordle every day the Dear Challenge. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Jill says hi.
It's a LLL level.
Grump says at Jill Heyer.
Isaac says I again.
Welcome PH to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. I again.
The creative one says O or L.
Welcome Jill to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says stuck on vowels. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song.
Welcome
chooses
to
the
Wordle
first
with
word.
Gaga.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart Jill and all the kisses.
Welcome GRWMOFFICIEL to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says wow your taps are on fire today, backward. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with I please Isaac.
Isaac says ideal.
Gaga Grumps says ideal you got. Gaga Grumps says wow we have an anagram. Gaga Grumps says great choice Isaac.
TH7 says a bye.
Gaga Grumps says I like. For Wordle in 2 abide.
Well, creative one says abide.
Gaga Grumps says so near and yet so far.
Isaac says Diane.
Isaac says NVMe can't
Welcome
go far.
MIA to Wordle with Gaga.
Jill says media.
The creative one says media.
Gaga Grumps says nice. Media for fireworks. Gaga Grumps says it's that time.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Wordle within 3, so gifts explode with glee. Fireworks for Gaga. Emojis make her happy. As in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga.
Welcome Davidson edits to Wordle with Gaga.
From a single rose to a whole bouquet. Anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Grumps says it. Catalina Wing, welcome back.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. G. The wheel finally found a consonant. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thumb, race to the top. Like a thumb, tap and don't stop.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Gremlin renowned like a thumb, fingers on fire like a thumb. Gremlins don't tire like a thumb, hearts be flying like a thumb. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says blimey, every time I start a race you smashed another goal. You rock. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. G, please Isaac.
Isaac says ghoul.
Gaga Grumps says ghoul you got.
Lil Creative 1 says at Grimps I need an auto tapper.lol.
Mum says steal.
Isaac says crawl.
Gaga grumps
Welcome
says a green
MMKH
L
to
lives
Wordle
at
with
number
Gaga.
5 Wordle Street. Gaga grumps says hi MMKH.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga grumps says steel fits.
Mum says Natal.
Gaga grumps says a moved in next door to L&T needs a home.
Mum says trial.
Gaga grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart MMKH.
Mum says no do trial.
A creative one says trial.
Mum says NP.
Gaga grumps says trial is a shout.
Welcome Shireen Curly to Wordle with Gaga.
Shireen Curly says hello.
Gaga grumps says close but no.
Shireen Curly says title.
MMKH says title.
Gaga grumps says Shireen in the house, LTNS.
Or creative one says tidal.
Gaga grumps says tidal for Wordle in 4.
Welcome, Gremlin, to the game grotto. Welcome, Gremlin.
Gaga grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Settle down, grab your heartbeat, share us round. Now tap that screen, tap it, tap it, tap that
Gaga
screen.
grumps says welcome Gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Game Gremlins on the
Good
scene.
day.
Game Gremlins on the scene. Game Gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Game Gremlins come, let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Let's see those
Or
team
creative
stickers.
one says I love a theme uses.
Game Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next one. Gaga grumps says
Game
thank you
Gremlins on the
creative.
scene.
Gaga grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga grumps says we are starting with A. H. Gaga grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thumb, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will
Gaga
be
Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
fingers on fire, like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like a thon. Hearts beat flying, like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says another like goal smashed amazing tapping. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. H, please, Shireen.
Shireen Curly says happy.
Gaga Grumps says happy you got.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Lost in the grid, can't figure it out. Oh no.
Isaac says globe.
A creative one says loner.
Gaga Grumps says globe fits.
Welcome you to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says yellow O and E in need of homes. Gaga Grumps says coverworks.
Shireen Curly says owner.
Gaga Grumps says Uto. A trap with no consonants. Need a consonant heavy filter.
Welcome Nyla Heart Hands to Wordle with Gaga. Hello creative one says offer. Welcome PRTB Karai to Wordle with Gaga.
Isaac says front.
Gaga Grumps says yep, front is a good one.
Oh, creative one says tango.
Gaga Grumps says gives us the F2.
Isaac says otter.
Shireen Curly says otter or outer.
Well, creative one says tower.
Gaga Grumps says 50-50.
Isaac says 2 options. The guesses were good.
Welcome AJ to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says wrong 50 lol.
Oh, creative one says outer.
Gaga Grumps says outer for the game.
Isaac says 50-50. It's ain't Gaga's friend lol.
It's playtime! Gaga is in the box!
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Grumps is on the buttons!
The creative one says that was close.
Let him push yours! Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly!
The creative one says W chat.
Gaga Grumps says yep, filter is definitely. Gaga Grumps says do the beat for Gaga. Share the live chat the chat and shower her with roses and GGs.
The creative one says glad you did it.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Shireen.
Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next one. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. What letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says so good I said it twice. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. J. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
La da da tap like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
fingers on fire like a thon. Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts beat flying like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says oh not crash the fifth like goal this time. Slacking. Lol. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. J please Ryan.
Creative One says joust.
Below some VXZ says hello.
Gaga Grumps says hey there Blossom. Gaga Grumps says if your word is being filtered try, I'd like word.
Welcome BLSSOM.VXZ to Wordle with Gaga.
VXZ says id like word juice.
Welcome AVS
Gaga
Spam to
Grumps
Wordle with
says
Gaga.
juicy Ugoi. Gaga Grumps says you know the format by now Blossom lol.
BL0SSOMVXZ says lol.
Lil Creative One says, wow, that's filtered.
Lolsum VXZ says cubic.
Gaga Grumps says nice choice.
Lowsom VXZ says at Ryan Winters 6, for you don't have to put a dot at the beginning. You will be heard DW.
Gaga Grumps says I like. Very possible and tests the C for 2 places if not.
The Lowsom VXZ says at Che hello Che.
Blow some BXZ
Welcome
says
Che to
cutie.
Wordle with Gaga.
Isaac says Cupid.
Gaga Grumps says CCXIX.
Shireen Curley says Cupid.
Lolsum VXZ says cutie.
A Creative One says curio.
Gaga Grumps says it sometimes doesn't like one word comments. Gaga Grumps says will Cupid fly in on fireworks?
BLO Som VXE says, who sends the treasure boxes?
Wosam VXZ says cutie.
Lil Creative One says curio.
Gaga Grumps says me I usually sent them with the welcome song.
BL0 VXZ says at Gaga, and Grimso okay.
Blossom the XD says curio or cutie.
Gaga Grumps says if it's not cutie it must be curio surely. Hell of a trap.
Isaac says I think it will be curio.
Usam VXD says curio defo.
Gaga Grumps says I can't see anything else so wouldn't know what to filter for. Gaga Grumps says what the?
Blur Som VX, Z says cumin prob hope, we
Welcome
don't
Lala to
lose.
Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says cumin. Fingers crossed.
Below Som VXZ says Lola might save us.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says GG's for Lala. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Isaac says that was a close one.
Jimmy says hello Granny and Grandad.
Play a part, it's a live day. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says too close. Should have filtered a guest ball.
Welcome Hallie Heart Hands to Wordle with Gaga. Grump says it Jimmy who let you in.
Gaga Grumps says Jimmy in the house.
Jimmy says at Grumps myself.
Welcome Clara List to Wordle with Gaga.
BL0SSNMDX says when you usually put treasure box up.
Gaga Grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.
Jimmy says it's Gaga and Grumps with who?
BLO Som VX, Z says Jimmy welcome back Jimmy.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Grumps says that Jimmy neither et a bouncer. Grumps says better, too.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
BLO Some VXZ says after the treasure box I'm gonna go.
Jimmy says at Grumps, haha, nah, I think you're the bouncer.
Gaga Grumps says okay Blossom XX. Gaga Grumps says bouncer. Bonkers more like. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Ryan. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. T.
BLO Some VXZ says that Lawless smart guess.
Gaga Grumps says Lala on the nose.
Thanks for the follow!
Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Well, Zombie XC says welcome, Crystal.
Like a thumb, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a
Gaga
thon?
Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Creative.
BLO Some VXZ says bye.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for help me blossom.
Shireen Curley said that BL0SS VXC by Lovely.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with T please Isaac.
BLO Some VXZ says it, Gaga and Grumps will go after this.
Isaac says think.
Gaga Grumps says lol okay blossom.
BLO Some VXZ says at Shireen Curly after this, Ilgo X.
Gaga Grumps says think you got.
Shireen Curly says at BL0
We would be
says
honored
I'm
if you would
.VXD.
join
I'm
us.
addicted to this game now XX.
BLO Some VXC says at Shireen Curly St. Lord.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Crystal says good morning.
says plum.
Welcome Crystal to Wordle with Gaga.
Volsom VXZ says drain.
Gaga Grumps says crystal in the house.
Welcome Shades by Nico to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says place fits. Gaga Grumps says a greener lives at number 3 Wordle Street.
Blusam VXD says drama.
Isaac says gravy.
Gaga Grumps says drama works.
Welcome Lola to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says we added homeless M and A.
Shireen Curly says amaze.
Grumps says treasure box is open.
Shireen Curly
Welcome Carly to
says
Wordle with
NVM.
Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says no E.
Blossom VXD says a mess.
Gaga Grumps says a mass is a good shout.
Blossom VXD says by now.
Good game.
Welcoming guys.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Share us round. Now tap that screen, tap it, tap that screen, yeah, tap it. It's your
Isaac says I'm going to go at Gaga and Grumps.
Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says tomorrow blossom.
Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Grumps says at BL0 SM.VXZ laters.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says by Isaac C tomorrow.
Tap it. Gang Gremlins come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it.
Gaga Grumps says welcome Gremlins to the game Grosso. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Isaac says see you tomorrow.
Now tap that screen.
Welcome Eggs and Bacon to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Davidson.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Grumps says at Isaac have a good day.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart eggs and bacon. And hello. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says at Crystal, hello there. Grumps says Q, I said Q.
Gaga Grumps says he didn't ask but he got one anyway.
Crystal says at Grumps good morning.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. Q.
Welcome Jack to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thumb, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned?
Welcome Alfie J to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Grumps says at Alfie _ J379 definitely not.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with Q, please, Shireen.
Shireen Curly says quiet.
Gaga Grumps says this is not today's Wordle.
Grumps says at Sunshine Katie, welcome back.
We would be honored if you
Welcome
would
Elliot to
Gaga
Wordle
Grumps
with
says
Gaga.
quiet you got. Gaga Grumps says yellow eye in need of a home.
Elliot says India.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for all the kisses, Crystal. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Elliot. And hi. Gaga Grumps says okay it is. Added a homeless D.
Sherry and Curly says pinch.
Gaga grumps says just what I was thinking.
Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga grumps says wait for it.
It's a performance explode 'em on her face. She's in a happy place.
Gaga grumps says Wordle and clear. Let's see those fireworks. Gifts and emojis will explode on Gaga's face.
Emojis make her happy. As in her face is happy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose to a whole bouquet. Anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga grumps says GG gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga grumps says appreciate all the love, Crystal. Gaga grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga grumps says we are starting with A. R. Gaga grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Welcome Sophia to Wordle with Gaga.
Race to the top like a thorn. Tap and don't stop like a thorn. Who will be crowned like a thorn?
Gaga grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Gremlins don't tire like a thorn. Hearts beat flying like a thorn. Gremlins defying.
Gaga grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga grumps says 7th like goal smashed, awesome fingerwork. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with R, please, Crystal. Gaga Grumps says tap yourself out of chat, Shireen.
Crystal says Rochex.
Welcome today's Wordle, tomorrow to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says Roach you got. Gaga Grumps says hey there TWT.
Shireen Curly says my child stole my phone when I was tapping them out.
Crystal says I did tap myself out twice now, lol.
Gaga Grumps says Green are living at number 3 Wordle Street. Gaga Grumps says I do it all the time in other lives, lol. Gaga Grumps says no R for drank.
Shireen Curly says played.
Gaga Grumps says how about prank instead.
Shireen Curly says no R.
Welcome Kyla to Wordle with Gaga.
Shireen Curly says at today's Wordle tomorrow, yeah, but it was already greyed out.
Gaga Grumps says I said no R and processed it as no D lol. Gaga Grumps says yeah, but then I used it for prank lol. Gaga Grumps says BD fits.
Welcome JWAFC to Wordle with Gaga.
Crystal says oh my goodness. Gaga grumps says yep. Chase says oh wait. Shireen Curly says OMG. Gaga grumps says and she has the family luck ha.
Jay says stuck with my theme. 1 yellow.
Gaga grumps says no plurals in Wordle Sophia.
Welcome Jay to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says yep I'm feeling stall or staff.
Shireen Curly says yestis.
Gaga grumps says saved from the stall.
Good game.
Gaga grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game.
A Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Ra ra ra. Will the fireworks fly?
Gaga grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says that one was a job of work.
Get it in 3. It's do or die. Only in 3. A pretty sky. A Wordle with Gaga. A Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says if you haven't done it yet grab your daily heart while I set up the next word.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga grumps says thanks for all the roses Shy and Crystal. Gaga grumps says thanks for following Sophia. Gaga grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. G. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thumb, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned?
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Fingers on fire, like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like a thon. Hearts beat flying, like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. G please Shireen. Che tried the snipe at the last second and missed the cut-off ha.
Che says so close, haha.
Shireen Curly says goofy.
Gaga Grumps says goofy you got.
Shireen Curly says my fingers hurt.
Gaga Grumps says yellow O in need of a home. Gaga Grumps says mine too and I'm not tapping lol.
Che says round.
Che says no.
Crystal says lol exactly.
Shireen Curly says proud.
Gaga Grumps says O doesn't go there.
Chase says my brain mixed up yellow and green.
Gaga Grumps says proud fits. Gaga Grumps says we have row in need of homes. Gaga Grumps says, and we had outer a few games back, so I'm rolling it out of this one.
Chase says humor.
Showing Cody says fireworks at the ready.
Gaga Grumps says humor works.
Chase says bruh.
Gaga Grumps says, oh my thanks for the galaxy. Gaga Grumps says every tring found a home in this galaxy.
Welcome not Sinead to Wordle with Gaga.
It's a LLL level up. I guessed it wrong.
Gaga Grumps says shy with the level up.
Now here we are, another height. If support was letters, there's a you'd spell wow. This level's ours. Come back.
Welcome Alicia to Wordle with Gaga.
Green, green, look at that glow. Didn't solve Wordle solo though. Support came in, guess it snapped. Level unlocked, shout out chat. New fandom level streaks.
Crystal says we play this Wordle game in this lovely galaxy.
Tomorrow we guess same time, same chat, same brilliant brains. Remember that.
Gaga Grumps says you rock, Crystal.
It's a LLL level up. I guessed it wrong.
Gaga Grumps says, and Chris L level up too.
Now here we are, another height. If support was letters, there's a you'd spell wow. This level's ours. Come out with me now. Green, green, look at that glow. Didn't solve Wordle solo though. Support came in, guess it snapped.
Gaga Grumps says loser not valid.
New fandom level streak still alive. Wordle solved and you helped me fry. Tomorrow
Gaga Grumps says Luna is spelled with an H.
brilliant brains. Remember that. It's a LLL level up.
Gaga
Guessed it
Grumps
wrong,
says, oh my level up
guessed
after
it
level up
right.
roll.
Now here we are, another height. If support was letters, there's a you'd spell wow. This level's ours. Come out with me now. Green, green, look at that glow. Didn't solve Wordle solo though. Support
Crystal
came
says me
in,
too.
guess it snapped. Level unlocked. Shout out chat. New fandom level streak still alive. Wordle solved and you helped me fry. Tomorrow we guess same time, same chat, same brilliant brains. Remember that.
Crystal says I have to go to work. Good day, everyone.
Gaga Grumps says there were two for you, Crystal.
Shireen Curly says, a Crystal, good day Crystal ZX.
Gaga Grumps says thank you so much, Crystal. Have a good day.
Crystal says I didn't realize my point were that much.
Gaga Grumps says welcome pretty. Jura is a good shout. Gaga Grumps says they jump fast with gifts. Gaga Grumps says no change. Gaga Grumps says sucker is 2 centiseconds, I think.
Crystal says tutor.
Welcome Cherry Freezy to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says this is going to be an American spelling I'm not seeing. Gaga Grumps says Crystal says nope, you're just blind, Gaga.
Good game.
Welcome,
Gaga Grumps says GG's for Crystal.
Welcome, Gremlins, to the game grotto.
Welcome in, guys. Settle down. Grab your heartbeat.
Gaga Grumps
Share
says
a
GG
smile.
Gremlins.
Now tap that
Let's
screen,
see those
tap
double
it,
ones in the
tap
chat.
that screen, yeah, tap it, tap it. It's your warm-up routine. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says welcome Gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Gang Gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Gang Gremlins coming, let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah,
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Crystal says a win before I go you. I love your lights.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next room.
Now tap that screen. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says thank you, Crystal, I love doing them.
Grumps says at Crystal, have a great day.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Welcome Buller Melting Face to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says Hartik Finity hiccuped on the timing there. Gaga Grumps says did anyone see what the wheel said lol.
Shireen Curly says middle of O and U.
Gaga Grumps says oh I put O. Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Butler. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Grumps says treasure box is open.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Everybody get down! It's a freaking sniper!
Gaga Grumps says Grumps in the snipe crown. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with O please Grumps.
Grumps says Ouija.
Gaga Grumps says lol Ouija you got. Gaga Grumps says can't blooming spell it.
Grumps says I literally typed it for you. Welcome Molly to Wordle with Gaga.
Shireen Curly says think.
Gaga Grumps says Green Eye lives at number 3 Wordle Street. Gaga Grumps says think fits.
Grumps says I would have been amused had that been a wipeout.
Gaga Grumps says so would I. Gaga Grumps says N moved in next door II.
Shireen Curly says swing.
Gaga Grumps says swing is a good shout. Gaga Grumps says Wordle says nope.
Welcome Stitch Lover to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says it hates us today. Shireen Curly says blind. Gaga Grumps says hi Stitch Lover. Gaga Grumps says no A for Kane. Gaga Grumps says blind works. Gaga Grumps says we start with B. Gaga Grumps says yep I think Brian too Butler. Gaga Grumps says why did no one tell me it's Buller not Butler? I'm so sorry lol. Gaga Grumps says what the? Gaga Grumps says thanks for the rose Buller. Gaga Grumps says must be briny surely. Shireen Curly says briny.
Welcome Jamie to Wordle with Gaga.
Shireen Curly says didn't see your comment, haha.
Gaga Grumps says I mean nice all green grid but WTAF.
It's playtime! Gaga is in the
Chase says I was distracted by burritos.
Don't let her lose! Grumps is on the buttons!
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Let those stickers fly! Which team are you on? Team Gaga
Gaga Grumps says okay, let me bring up the last game of the day. Gaga Grumps says thanks Molly. It keeps taking us to the brink today. Gaga Grumps says Grumps is on the phone ATM. He's not paying attention. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
It's a LLL level up. I guessed it.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Buller says Verge.
Buller says Verge. Gaga Grumps says ha right on the nose Molly. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word. Shireen Kelly says Verge.
Like a thumb, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says Yuto he's back. Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with V please Molly.
Shireen Kelly
Welcome
says
Sinead 2
Verge.
Real to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says I give those hands a good workout Buller. Gaga Grumps says Verge you got.
Shireen Curley says Verge BL is.
Gaga Grumps says White House in the chat.
Shireen Curley says audio.
Gaga Grumps says audio fits if I can type it.
Shireen Curley says thing.
Gaga Grumps says a single yellow eye. I don't think this wipeout is ending in fireworks. Gaga Grumps says we just had briny Molly.
Jay says I think Brinny was the joke.
Welcome Belfast
Gaga
Car Park Boy
Grumps
to
says
Wordle
no
with
G for
Gaga.
thing. Gaga Grumps says dough. Gaga Grumps says it's the end of the live. I'm half asleep now lol. Gaga Grumps says no E for twine.
Shireen Curley says twine.
Gaga Grumps says no plurals in Wordle Belfast.
Shireen Curley
Welcome Summer to
says
Wordle with
think.
Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says think these fireworks into bring. Gaga Grumps says being. Gaga Grumps says we have a TH.
Welcome Rai to Wordle with Gaga.
Rai says which?
Shireen Curley says fifth.
Gaga Grumps says fifth fits.
Welcome Harry to Wordle with Gaga.
Shireen Curly says which.
Rory says which.
Gaga Grumps says did Rai come in with the save and we missed it?
Shireen Curly says I think she did.
Shireen Curly says pitch.
Chase says pitch.
Rory says pitch Mitch hitch.
Che says gamble of hope.
Gaga Grumps says oh no. Pitch or hitch?
Welcome Leia Ralston to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says didn't we have one of them already the
We
other
would
day?
be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says guess what? I lost the 50-50.
Rory says try hitch.
Grumps says pitch black end to the day.
Che says to be fair I said pitch, so we should have known it wasn't my guess.
Gaga Grumps says no more guesses Rai. We lost.
Rare says OM delayed.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for joining me to play Wordle. I will be back at 4 p.m. UK tomorrow for more Wordle with Gaga.
Good game. 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 Good game.
Gaga Grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.